Hey people, get ready to crush everyday TOEFL iBT tests for all modules and make your dreams come true. I'm your motivator and I'll be guiding you through the test prep videos. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe or you'll be missing out on some serious preparation.
Do you agree that technology has made people less creative? Explain. Begin speaking now.
I agree that technology make people less creative. Because now everyone use internet to find ideas. Before, people think by themselves and make original things. But now, they just copy from internet or use AI to write or draw for them. For example, my friend always use app to make design. He never try to make something by himself. I think this is bad because people don't practice creativity. Also, social media shows same type of content every day so people just follow trend. They don't make new things. So yes, technology is bad for creativity and make people lazy and not original.
I agree that technology has made people less creative. One reason is that people now rely on digital tools to generate ideas instead of thinking for themselves. For instance, many students use AI programs to write their essays or create artwork, which means they are not developing their own creative skills. Another reason is that social media platforms promote repetitive content, so people tend to copy popular trends rather than create something original. In my experience, when I need to design a poster, I usually search online for templates instead of designing from scratch. This habit reduces my ability to think creatively. Therefore, I believe technology, while useful, has negatively affected human creativity overall.
While technology offers undeniable advantages, I firmly agree that it has significantly diminished human creativity. First, the widespread availability of AI-generated content has fostered a dependency that discourages original thinking. Students, for example, increasingly turn to generative AI tools to produce written work or visual art, bypassing the cognitive effort that drives genuine creative development. Second, algorithm-driven platforms curate content based on popularity, which reinforces conformity and discourages users from exploring unconventional ideas. When everyone consumes and reproduces identical viral trends, creative diversity inevitably suffers. Finally, the instant accessibility of pre-made templates eliminates the productive struggle that has historically sparked innovation. True creativity requires grappling with problems independently, a practice that technology, paradoxically, has made increasingly obsolete in modern society.
Effective Fall 2026, Hartwell University will transition to a fully online-only course registration system. Students will no longer be able to register for classes in person at the registrar's office. All registration activities, including adding, dropping, and waitlisting courses, must be completed through the university's official student portal. This change is intended to streamline the registration process, reduce long queues, and allow students to register conveniently from any location. The registrar's office will remain open for academic advising and technical support only. Students are strongly encouraged to attend one of the orientation sessions scheduled before the Fall 2026 registration period begins. Two students, a man and a woman, are discussing the university announcement posted on the campus bulletin board. The man strongly disagrees with the university's decision. He argues first that not all students have reliable internet access, particularly those living off campus, which puts them at a serious disadvantage. Second, he contends that during peak registration periods the portal is likely to crash due to high traffic, potentially preventing students from enrolling in required courses. He concludes that the in-person option served as a vital safety net and should not have been removed. The student expresses an opinion about the announcement. State the opinion and explain the reasons given. Begin speaking now.
The man don't like the new registration system at the university. He think it is a bad idea. He say that some students don't have good internet at home, so they cannot use the online portal. This is a big problem because those students will miss their classes. Also, he say that when many students try to use the system at the same time, it can break down or have error. So students maybe cannot register. He prefer the old way because students can go to the office and get help directly from a person. He think university should not change to only online because it will make problems for many students.
The man opposes the university's decision to switch to an online-only registration system and gives two main reasons. First, he points out that not all students have reliable internet access, especially those who live off campus or in areas with poor connectivity, which means those students will be at a disadvantage when trying to register for courses. Second, he argues that during peak registration periods, the portal is likely to experience technical problems due to extremely high traffic. If the website crashes, students might miss important courses. He concludes that keeping the in-person option at the registrar's office is important as a backup for students who face these kinds of difficulties, and he believes the university should reconsider.
The man strongly opposes the university's plan to transition to an exclusively online registration system, and he supports his position with two compelling arguments. First, he raises the issue of digital inequity, noting that a significant portion of the student population lacks consistent, reliable internet access, particularly those residing off campus in areas with limited infrastructure. Eliminating the in-person option effectively disadvantages these students by creating an uneven playing field during an already competitive registration process. Second, he expresses serious concern about the system's technical reliability during high-demand registration windows. When thousands of students attempt to access the portal simultaneously, server overloads and crashes are highly probable, potentially barring students from securing seats in required courses. He emphasizes that the in-person registrar's office previously served as a critical safety net, and its removal could have lasting academic consequences for vulnerable student populations.
In sociology, social norms are the shared rules and expectations that guide behavior within a given group or society. They define what is considered appropriate, acceptable, or obligatory in specific social situations. Norms can be formal, such as laws and written regulations, or informal, existing as unspoken understandings passed down through socialization. When individuals conform to norms, they typically receive social approval, while those who violate them may face sanctions ranging from mild disapproval to legal punishment. Social norms vary across cultures and time periods, reflecting the values and priorities of the communities that uphold them. A sociology professor lectures about social norms and illustrates the concept using the real-world example of elevator behavior on a university campus. The professor describes how people follow unspoken rules when riding elevators, facing the doors, avoiding eye contact, and standing apart from strangers, even though none of these behaviors are written down anywhere. She explains that students who violate these norms, such as by facing the back wall or standing too close, make others visibly uncomfortable and may even be asked to move. This example shows how informal norms powerfully regulate everyday social interaction. Using the example from the lecture, explain the concept of social norms as described in the reading. Begin speaking now.
The reading says social norms are rules people follow in society. They can be formal or informal. The professor talks about elevator. People in elevator face the door and don't look at each other. If someone does different, other people feel uncomfortable. So this shows social norms or rules even if not written.
According to the reading, social norms are shared expectations that tell people how to behave in social situations. They can be formal, like laws, or informal. The professor gives a good example about elevators. When people ride elevators, they automatically face the front doors, avoid eye contact, and keep distance from others. Nobody writes these rules down, but everyone follows them. If a person faces the back wall or stands too close, other people feel uncomfortable and may react negatively. This illustrates the reading's point that violating norms leads to social sanctions, even for unwritten, informal rules.
The reading defines social norms as the shared, often unspoken rules that regulate behavior within a society, noting that violations can trigger sanctions ranging from mild disapproval to formal punishment. The professor's elevator example brings this to life perfectly. She points out that people instinctively follow a set of informal norms in elevators, facing the doors, maintaining physical distance, and avoiding sustained eye contact, despite the fact that none of these expectations are ever explicitly stated or enforced. When someone deliberately breaks these norms, such as by turning to face the back of the elevator, the discomfort and negative reactions from other passengers represent exactly the kind of social sanction the reading describes. Together, the reading and lecture demonstrate that informal norms are just as binding as formal rules because they are deeply internalized through the socialization process.
A computer science professor delivers a lecture introducing two fundamental encryption methods, symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption, explaining how each works and providing concrete real-world examples of their applications. The professor explains that symmetric encryption uses a single shared key to both encrypt and decrypt data, using the analogy of a lockbox where both sender and receiver hold identical keys. She cites AES as a widely used standard for encrypting stored files. She then contrasts this with asymmetric encryption, which uses a mathematically linked public-private key pair, illustrating it with the HTTPS protocol used when a browser securely connects to a website. The server shares its public key openly, but only it holds the private key needed to decrypt incoming data, making eavesdropping computationally infeasible. Using points and examples from the lecture, explain the two encryption methods the professor describes. Begin speaking now.
The professor talks about two types of encryption. First is symmetric encryption. It uses one key to lock and unlock data. She says AES is an example. Second is asymmetric encryption. It uses two keys, one public and one private. HTTPS uses this. The professor says these are both important for keeping data safe. So the main difference is how many keys are used.
The professor describes two main encryption methods. The first is symmetric encryption, where the same key is used to both encrypt and decrypt information. She compares it to a lockbox that two people share identical keys for. AES is a real-world example used for encrypting stored files. The second method is asymmetric encryption, which uses two different but mathematically related keys, a public key and a private key. The professor uses HTTPS as an example. When you connect to a website, the server shares its public key with anyone, but keeps the private key secret, so only the server can decrypt messages. The key difference is whether one key or two keys are involved.
In the lecture, the professor introduces two foundational encryption methods and clarifies how they differ in both structure and application. The first, symmetric encryption, relies on a single shared key that performs both encryption and decryption. She uses a helpful analogy: imagine a lockbox to which both the sender and the receiver hold identical copies of the key. In practice, this approach is exemplified by AES, the Advanced Encryption Standard, which is commonly used to protect files stored on a device. The second method, asymmetric encryption, is more complex because it employs a mathematically paired public key and private key. The professor illustrates this with HTTPS, the secure protocol your browser uses when connecting to a website. The server distributes its public key freely so that anyone can send encrypted data to it, but only the server possesses the corresponding private key needed to decrypt that data. This makes interception by a third party computationally infeasible. In summary, the core distinction is that symmetric encryption prioritizes speed and simplicity with one key, while asymmetric encryption prioritizes security in open networks through its two-key architecture.
Hey people, how was your test? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or you'll be missing out on some serious fun. See you tomorrow!